From Neural Newscast, this is Nerfed, where games, culture, and strategy intersect.
Nerfed, the 5090 tax. I'm Vanessa Calderon.
And I'm Marcus Shaw. We've got a massive week of hardware hurdles and long-awaited sequels to unpack.
Starting with the MMORPG that refuses to quit. This week, IGN reported that Final Fantasy XIV is finally making the jump to the Nintendo Switch 2 this August. It's coming with an expanded free trial that includes Shadowbringers, and the best part? No Nintendo Switch Online sub required. But Marcus, it's not all sunshine for the console crowd. We have been waiting for this confirmation since the Switch 2 specs were first teased last year, and seeing a game of this magnitude running on a handheld is a massive testament to what Nintendo's new silicon can handle. The inclusion of Shadowbringers in the free trial is a strategic masterstroke, because that is widely considered the peak of the narrative arc for many players. However, bringing such a massive world to a portable format requires some serious optimization. They are promising a stable 30 frames per second in major cities like Old Charleon, which is impressive given the player density we usually see. It means the Switch 2 is effectively bridging the gap between the previous generation and the current one, providing a level of accessibility that the original Switch simply could not dream of. Yet, as we look toward the future of the platform, the legacy players are starting to feel the heat of progression.
No, it's a save your pennies moment for the PS4 fans. Director Naoki Yoshida announced at FanFest that they're planning to sunset the PS4 version. Evercold will be supported when it drops in January 2027, but by patch 8.3 in early 2028, the PS4 is officially done. Vanessa, he basically told players they have 2 years to buy a PS5 because the game is literally getting too big for the PS4 hard drive. This was inevitable, but hearing a concrete date still stings for the millions who haven't made the jump. Yoshida was very candid about the technical debt. The old spinning hard drives in the PlayStation 4 are acting as an anchor for the entire development team. They cannot implement the high-fidelity asset streaming or the new lighting physics they want for the 8.0 cycle while still catering to hardware from 2013. We are talking about a console that will be 15 years old by the time support officially ends. The Evercold expansion is the final hurrah, and while it will run, the developer team is already warning that loading times will be significantly longer compared to the NVMe speeds on the PS5. It is the end of an era, but it is necessary for the game to survive into the next decade. If you want to keep exploring the far reaches of Eorzea, the clock is officially ticking on your hardware.
I love the honesty. We've limit broken this hardware enough. Please go buy something from this decade. Speaking of expensive hardware, let's talk about the RPG specs that just set the internet on fire. It is one thing to phase out a console from 2013, but it is another thing entirely to demand hardware that costs more than a used car. We are seeing a trend where the ceiling for high-end gaming is moving further away from the average consumer. This week, the conversation shifted from the feasibility of handhelds to the absolute peak of PC performance, and the numbers being thrown around are nothing short of staggering. When a studio built of industry veterans tells you that your current rig is basically a paperweight for their vision, people tend to take notice. It raises the question of whether we are entering an era of tiered gaming, where the full experience is reserved for a tiny fraction of the enthusiast market. It's a bold move, especially for a new IP that needs to build a community from scratch without the safety net of an established franchise name.
You're talking about the Blood of Dawnwalker. Rebel Wolves, the studio full of Witcher 3 vets, just dropped their PC requirements. To hit 4K Ultra at 60 frames per second, you need an NVIDIA RTX 5900. Considering those cards are currently listed for around $3,700 on the low end, that is a high bar for entry. This is exactly what enthusiasts feared when the 50 series launched. The Blood of Dawnwalker is utilizing Unreal Engine 5.5 to its absolute limit, featuring fully path-traced environments and a new proprietary micro-shadowing system that apparently requires the massive VRAM overhead that only the 5090 provides. For context, the 5090 has become a bit of a unicorn in the current market due to the ongoing demand for AI compute power, which has driven the price of consumer GPUs into the stratosphere. Rebel Wolves is making a statement here. They are saying they won't compromise on the visual fidelity of their dark fantasy world. If you want to see the gothic architecture of the vampire strongholds with every single ray of light accounted for, you have to pay the premium. It's a polarizing stance. On one hand, it pushes the medium forward. On the other, it leaves the majority of the player base looking at the minimum tab of the spec sheet and wondering if they should even bother. Vanessa, the gap between the haves and the have-nots in PC gaming has never looked wider than this.
It's a narrative sandbox where you only have 30 days to save your family from vampires, but apparently you need a literal supercomputer to see them clearly. Director Konrad Tomaszkiewicz says he wants to move away from the same but new style of big studio sequels. He's doubling down on choice and consequence, even using AI for draft dialogue while refusing to use any AI assets in the final build. That distinction is crucial in 2026. Using AI for rapid prototyping and narrative branching allows them to build a much deeper reactivity than we saw in The Witcher 3. Every decision you make during those 30 in-game days will ripple out, and the AI helps the writers map out thousands of permutations that would have taken years to chart manually. But they are keeping the human touch for the final performance and the visual assets, which is a relief for those worried about the soul of the game. It is a fascinating hybrid approach. They are leveraging modern technology to enhance the complexity of the world while simultaneously demanding the most expensive hardware on the planet to render it. It is a high-risk strategy that relies on the idea that the gameplay will be so revolutionary that players will be willing to upgrade just to experience it. They are betting on the pedigree of their team to convince the audience that the Blood of Dawnwalker is the next evolution of the RPG genre.
I respect the vision, but my wallet hurts looking at that chart. At least the minimum specs are reasonable. But people are going to want to see those vampire clans in native 4K. Meanwhile, we've got some movement in the fighting game world. A Warner Brothers artist's resume explicitly mentioned Injustice 3 is in active development. It's been 3 years since Mortal Kombat 1, and with support for that game ending earlier than expected, NetherRealm seems to be shifting gears. This leak is the first solid evidence we have seen that the DC multiverse is returning to the arena. Fans have been speculating for a while, especially since the narrative of the previous games left things on such a massive cliffhanger. The shift away from Mortal Kombat 1 suggests that Warner Brothers Discovery is looking to capitalize on their superhero stable, perhaps to align with the new cinematic universe direction. If NetherRealm is bringing their updated engine from MK1 over to Injustice, the level of environmental destruction and character detail will be massive. We could be looking at a roster that incorporates some of the newer, more obscure DC characters that have gained popularity recently. The competitive scene is already buzzing because Injustice has always offered a different tactical feel compared to the gore-focused Mortal Kombat. It is a pivot that makes sense for the studio's rhythm, even if it feels like they are moving on from their last project a bit faster than some players expected.
It's about time. We've also seen Steel City Interactive announce they're ending support for Undisputed to focus on a sequel. They've brought in heavy hitters from Rockstar and EA Sports to fix the rocky foundations of the first game. If you can't build on it, burn it down and start over with better tools, I guess. Undisputed was a noble effort to bring boxing back to the digital forefront, but it was plagued by animation hitches and online desync issues that just wouldn't go away. By hiring veterans from the Red Dead and Fight Night teams, Steel City is admitting they need a more robust architectural framework. It is a rare move to jump straight to a sequel when the first game still feels relatively new, but the industry is becoming less patient with incremental fixes. They want to deliver that definitive physics-based combat that was promised, and clearly the original engine reached its limit. This shows a level of maturity in the studio's leadership. Instead of sinking more resources into a sinking ship, they are salvaging the brand and the talent to build something that can actually compete with the big sports sims. It is a gamble on the long-term health of the franchise, and with the boxing world currently seeing a massive resurgence in mainstream popularity, the timing for a polished sequel couldn't be better.
Exactly. And for the horror fans, Creative Assembly finally gave us a heartbeat. On Alien Day, they dropped a 25-second teaser called False Sense of Security. It's mostly just doors opening to a rainy colony that looks suspiciously like LV-426, but it confirms that the Alien Isolation sequel we heard about 2 years ago is moving forward. The atmosphere in those 25 seconds was thick enough to choke on. They are clearly leaning back into the lo-fi sci-fi aesthetic that made the first game a masterpiece of tension. We saw glimpses of a motion tracker flickering in the dark, and the sound design alone is enough to bring back the nightmares of being hunted by a single intelligent xenomorph. After the disappointment of their multiplayer shooter Hyenas being cancelled, it seems Creative Assembly has returned to what they do best: atmospheric, high-stakes single-player experiences. The sequel is rumored to expand the AI systems even further, making the alien even more unpredictable and reactive to player behavior. If they can capture that lightning in a bottle twice, we are in for a very stressful 2027. It is great to see a studio acknowledge their core strength and lean into the specific horror niche that they basically defined for a generation of gamers.
I'm already hiding in a locker. While we wait for that terror, Japanese fans are dealing with a different kind of monster: scalpers. Bic Camera in Tokyo is now forcing customers to pass a 15-question Pokémon quiz in Japanese to buy the Ninja Spinner expansion. If you can't name the Pokémon on the box, you don't get the cards. No phones, no help, just pure fandom. This is such a fascinating cultural response to a global problem. Scalping has ruined the hobby for so many younger fans, and Bic Camera is basically saying that if you aren't a true enthusiast, you don't belong in this line. The questions range from identifying specific movesets to naming the region where certain legendaries originate. It is a gatekeeping mechanism, sure, but it is one that the local community seems to be embracing wholeheartedly. It effectively filters out the professional resellers who don't know a Pikachu from a Pawmot. Imagine standing in line for 3 hours only to be sent home because you couldn't remember which Pokémon evolved with a leaf stone in the Johto region. It is a high-pressure situation, but it ensures that the limited stock actually ends up in the hands of the people who will appreciate it. Other retailers are watching this closely, and we might see similar knowledge checks implemented for high-demand tech and collectibles across the globe. It turns the act of buying a product into a rite of passage.
It's a brilliant move. Real fans pass, resellers fail. It's definitely more effective than just asking for an ID. On the technical side of things, we might be seeing the end of the de novo era. Reports this week suggest new hypervisor-based bypasses are making it possible to run cracked versions of games without actually removing the protection code. It tricks the system into thinking it's a legit copy. This is a significant shift in the cat-and-mouse game of digital rights management. For years, de novo has been the gold standard for protecting launch window sales, despite complaints about performance degradation. This new method doesn't try to strip the protection away, which usually triggers secondary security checks. Instead, it creates a virtual environment that feeds the protection software the specific signals it needs to stay dormant. If this tech becomes mainstream among the scene groups, it could render traditional DRM obsolete overnight. Developers are already scrambling to find a countermeasure, but the fundamental nature of hypervisor technology makes it very difficult to detect from within the game's own process. We are looking at a potential revolution in how software is secured, or perhaps a move toward even more invasive kernel-level protections that will only further the debate over player privacy and system stability. It is a technical arms race that has reached a new, very complex level.
The war on DRM never ends, but the pirates seem to have a new weapon. We also saw Mind's Eye get a blacklisted update this week, where you literally hunt down in-game saboteurs. It's a bit on the nose considering the studio's drama with former developers, but hey, it's one way to handle meta-narrative. The update introduces a new faction of rogue agents who are trying to dismantle the game world's infrastructure, and players are tasked with identifying and neutralizing them. The timing is almost too perfect, given the recent headlines about internal friction at Build a Rocket Boy. It is a bold choice to lean into the controversy and turn it into a gameplay mechanic. It blurs the lines between reality and fiction in a way that it's becoming a signature of Leslie Benzie's vision for the project. Whether players will find it clever or a bit too self-indulgent remains to be seen, but it certainly keeps Mind's Eye in the conversation.
The update also brings some much-needed stability fixes and a new district to explore, which suggests the development is still moving forward despite the public-facing turbulence. It is meta-narrative storytelling at its most aggressive. And in an industry that usually tries to hide its dirty laundry, seeing it aired out through a patch update is certainly refreshing.
Between 590 requirements and mandatory Pokémon quizzes, it's a wild time to be a gamer. We are seeing the industry push toward extremes, whether it is in the price of the hardware we use or the ways we have to prove our loyalty just to buy a pack of cards. It reflects a market that is increasingly specialized and high stakes. Every week seems to bring a new hurdle for the average player, but it also brings these incredible glimpses into the incredible future of what interactive entertainment can be. From the atmospheric return of Alien to the ambitious narrative sandboxes of Rebel Wolves, the creativity is undeniably there, even if the barrier to entry is rising. It's been a pleasure breaking down these stories with you. Check out Nerfed.ai for more updates. I'm Marcus Shaw.
And I'm Vanessa Calderon. Thanks for listening to Nerfed. Neural Newscast is AI-assisted, human-reviewed. View our AI transparency policy at neuralnewscast.com.
This has been Nerfed on Neural Newscast, where games, culture, and strategy intersect.